So my name is Michael Bean, and today we're going to be covering how to easily create single-player simulations with Forio Epicenter. We have a big agenda today, and what I want to do is start off by talking a little bit about what Forio Epicenter is, and then share an example of a completed simulation just to show you a little bit about what are the features that we're going to be talking about through the webinar today. And then what we're going to do is go through the process of very quickly, because we only have an hour today, we're going to wrap up within the hour, building a simulation, going all the way through the process where we create a model, build a basic interface, and then do some things to create some accounts so we can show you how accounts work and how learners or students can log into the simulation and play it. From there, we're going to go to fixing model issues, and I'm going to intentionally create a model issue when I create a model today, and then we'll go ahead and fix that just to kind of expose it, because I do think it illustrates sort of a specific problem that we often see in building models that I wanted to illustrate to everyone. And then we're going to go through showing additional reports and including things around creating characters. So we're going to show how do you go about creating text responses in simulations in single player. And then also show how to create a final results page, and we're going to use conditionals to do that. And finally, show facilitator pages. So that's quite a lot in an hour, obviously. And then, as I said, we'll wrap up with next steps and questions at the end here. But starting off of our list here, what is Forio Epicenter? It's a computational platform for both authoring and hosting simulations. So we start today with the authoring part of it, but a big piece of this as well is this ability to host simulations and also manage accounts. So you can use it as a way of creating subscriptions and having independent facilitator accounts from your learners or your students so that they can see results for an entire workshop or class. And you can have other features as well that are available for doing things around multiplayer simulations, for example, and have multiple worlds occurring in one class, as well as having multiple classes happening around the world. There are tools that are available for actually extending this beyond simulations and games and doing other things like machine learning optimizations. A lot more of that is happening now with the platform. We're not going to be covering that today during the webinar. These are some of the languages that are supported in Forio Epicenter. And it's quite a list here. The top row represents system dynamics languages. And I saw on our list today, we have some people who have a system dynamics background. For those of you who don't know, system dynamics is a type of modeling approach. There's various kinds out there. And those are commercial, that top row are commercial simulation tools for building system dynamic simulations. But those aren't actually the most popular tools for doing modeling, nor are they the most popular tools for building simulations in Epicenter. That goes to Excel over here. So Excel is probably the most common modeling tool out there, and it's a very good tool for building models within Epicenter. And because of that, we're going to be using Excel as our example today. But really, any of these languages will work for building the model for a simulation in Epicenter. And the way that we think about this, the way we think about building simulations or building games within Epicenter is that we separate the model logic or the gaming logic from the interface. So you really have to do two things in Epicenter. You have to build the logic for your game, and then you have to create an interface around that logic to be able to play it. And so what we're looking at here are all the tools for building the logic, and then Epicenter itself has tools available for creating the interface to create that simulation. So why don't I start right now just by showing you an example of a finished simulation, and we'll show some of the features that we're talking about to give you a little bit of a flavor for how this all works. So here is a simulation that we developed with Harvard Business Publishing recently. This is a version 3 of a simulation we did, and I believe it was launched in November or maybe late October, something like that. So pretty recent simulation that was put together. And the topic of the simulation is managing segments and customers. And one of the features it has a prepare section at the beginning. And the idea is that you learn a little bit about the topic, and the topic for the simulation is around making investments and kind of increasing your market share in sales for a company that produces sensors that are used for like running, for example, or for health and things like that. So these would be like, sort of, I think of these as sort of the like Apple Watch or something similar that's going to be a motion capture sensor over time. And you can see some background information on how it works and some of the, the basics of the sim. There's a start button at the bottom. If I click the start button, I moved on to the analyze page, and I can see a dashboard with some initial results. It's showing me kind of a history of results going, from the past year in here. And then I can look at other pages as well. I've got prices, customer purchases, sales. I have financial statements that I can create. I have a research page that shows my market research and so on. And what I do is I look at all this information, and I'm going to proceed, over multiple quarters here in the simulation, and then I decide what to do. So I have sliders, for example, where I can allocate certain spending for different things. I'm going to just adjust this so I can make the sim run. Let's see, and that leaves me with, actually that's enough. Okay, I'll leave that alone then. And I can just adjust prices here, for example, if I want to increase or decrease my prices. I can also allocate spending to different things, and that's going to change things over time here in terms of how I spend on large and small customers, that sort of thing. And then once I've finished that, I submit my decisions, and this is a turn-based simulation. So now we've advanced to the next quarter, or in some simulations we advance to the next year, and we can kind of look at results and see how we did within the simulation. So if I go back here, I can see, actually, I didn't do very well in this round right now. And I also get some news up here. If I click on the news, this is some text-based information that I'm getting that kind of explain what's going on right now. And I see, some news about, oops, let me go back to that. There's some news about last quarter's sales had declined, which isn't great. There's distributor information. If I progress in the simulation, I'll see other news that appears in here. And at the end of the simulation, there's a sort of summary of results, which I'm not going to run all the way to the end of the simulation right now because I want to keep moving here, but that's another sort of feature of it, is that we get the summary of the results at the end. In addition, there are also facilitator pages that are available. And a facilitator page is a way of looking at all the results for a class. So here I can see a setup where I can create new runs and kind of change parameters for that entire group or class of learners that are running the simulation. And I can choose to open the simulation or only make it closed so people can't play. I can assign users. In this class, I only have one user, which was the account I was just showing you. So the class results aren't particularly interesting right now, but you can see here's the single user, and I get some background. But imagine, in a real class, we might have 50 or 100 users that are logged in, kind of looking at results and things like that over time. And I can also see best scores for a class and also their market position and things like that. So other information that's available. And this facilitator page is used for both, uploading students or uploading learners. It's also used for setting new parameters to create new scenarios that learners can go through. And finally, it's used for looking at results of the simulation. And what we want to do today during the webinar is kind of look at all those different pieces and things. And this particular simulation I'm showing you right now is what we think of as a high production value simulation. And what I mean by high production value is there's really two types of authors who are building simulations in Epicenter. And one of them is represented by this fellow. So this person, and I think this is probably the most common example of how people use the platform. And what this is, a single person who has a model. Maybe this is a model that this person built in Excel, or maybe some other tool, and they just want to get this simulation available online. And they don't have experience with web design. They don't have people who are web developers helping them. They're working completely on their own. And Epicenter supports this kind of person with some of the tools that are available within the platform. But in addition, we have, like what we saw kind of in this past example, are for high production value simulations, a team of people who will come together. And in those cases, we'll have a UX UI designer who's actually designing the interfaces and kind of determining what goes on what page and determining colors and fonts, etc. A modeler of some sort that's often working independent of the web developer and the UI designer who's building that model out. And and again, the model could be done in Excel, it could be done in Python, it could be done in Java, it could be done in Vensim, etc. And then after that model's put together and design's been done, a web developer is implementing the design that was done by the UI designer. And then often, because this is being released by for mass use, there'll be a QA person, and because so many people are involved, there's a project manager as well. So really two different approaches. And for today, what we're going to do is really focus on this first approach, the approach of an individual working, because that's kind of what and the main reason for that is that's what we can accomplish quickly so that we can get, in the next now 50 minutes left, a fully functioning simulation. But it's also possible to kind of divide responsibilities and work this way, which is a kind of a more involved project for doing something that is that has sort of a fancier interface to it, I guess. And the way that we accomplish that, the way that we get to supporting both these types of users in the interface, is by having a set or a stack of interface technologies available. And as you go up the stack, the tools that are available get easier to use. And sometimes I get asked, well, if they're easier to use, why don't we just always use the top of the stack? And the reason for that is that you have more flexibility as you work your way down the stack. So that's the trade-off that we see, is ease of use versus flexibility. And today we're going to use the very top of the stack, which is interface templates that are available within Epicenter for creating both a learner interface or a player interface, and also a facilitator interface. But you can go below that and do things with Flow.js, for example, which is sort of a HTML-based tool. So in here, you're using HTML to kind of create the interface. It requires a bit more work. And Epicenter.js layer is really used by professional web developers, like what we have here at Forio, and that exists in other organizations, who are implementing exactly what a web developer or web designer, pardon me, would be building with that. And we also have other things like aggregate APIs and things like that that are available for building these interfaces. So that's what I wanted to start with. And what I want to do today, like I said, is start with building a model and then go from there to actually creating an interface. So let me jump over. And today, as I said, we're going to be using Excel for our modeling language. So let me just create a blank Excel spreadsheet. And I'm going to quickly kind of put together a model for us. And I could have shown a model from, that was pre-built, but I think it's more effective and sort of helpful for learning this to really start from scratch here. To start like where I'm opening something up that's completely blank and then just kind of building it out. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so it's just easier for everyone to see today. But what I want to do is start to build a model out. And what I want to do, and I thought it would be fun today, since it's in the news a lot, and hopefully it's not too overused at this point, but is do the Tesla Cybertruck. So we want to look at Tesla Cybertruck sales, and we're going to imagine playing a game where we're managing the pricing of the Tesla Cybertruck over the next few years. And that's sort of our simple game for today. And the first thing we want to do is kind of think about, like, what is the time frame that we want to build this out in. I'm going to say let's start next year in 2020, and then we want the simulation to progress to 2021, and let's just go out a few years here. We want it to go to 2024 for our timing of the simulation. And one of the big things we want to do here is set price. And the Tesla Cybertruck is currently selling, I think, or will sell when it is released, I think next year. 2020 will be sold for $40,000. And what we want to do is say, okay, every year that that decision is made, it's going to apply to future years. So imagine in the game, if I'm setting the price for as a decision for 2022, if I change this to, I say I want to charge more for it, then the next price that appears on the decisions page will be this 50,000. So it kind of remembers it. And the way we do that is use equal from the previous column there. I'm going to return this to that previous round, so it's still set with that. And then we want to say something about sales for the Cybertruck. And various things have come in recently on this. Actually, what I'd like to do with this is maybe let's just set down here an initial sales. So this will be something we can say something about the initial sales for the Cybertruck, and then I'll refer to that. So I'm going to say initially it's going to be at 150,000 for the first year. And then what I can do is I can refer to that cell here. And then what I want to have happen is that grow by some percentage over time. And what I'm going to do is just assume it grows by 5% per year. So we'll have it grow by 5% per year over the lifetime of this, and so that's how we'll have it go here. And let me do this too. I want to get this formatted with some columns here, so we'll have it kind of look clean. Okay, so next we want to have maybe revenue for our company, for Tesla, for the Cybertruck. And revenue is simple. It's just price times sales. And then from there, so $6 billion, that's pretty good. Now we want to do something around, say, variable costs. So there's some variable costs that are associated with doing the Cybertruck. And I'm going to say that is, I don't know, $25,000 of the total price, or $25,000 is going to be, and I'm going to multiply that times my total sales. And that's going to determine my variable costs over the next few years. And I guess I need to make this a little bit wider. There we go. And then I'll have some fixed costs. And I'm going to assume, let's see here. Well, let's do the same thing here. I'm going to do some fixed costs, initial fixed costs on the bottom. And I'm going to assume it's $2 billion in fixed costs. So that, I think that's reasonable for this initial amount. That'll give me a little bit of profit at the beginning here. Maybe that's unrealistic, but again, these things are changeable. So we're just putting that together. There's our 2 billion. And so I'll say our initial fixed costs are 2 billion. And then every year after that, it's just going to stay at that 2 billion level because that's the whole point of having fixed costs. And then from there, we have total costs. And those are just going to be equal to the variable costs plus the fixed costs. And we're almost done. So we're getting close here for at least our first model. And then finally, we have profit. For our profit, what we're going to do is say it is going to be equal to revenue minus my total costs. And what I need to do is show revenue changing here. So let me copy this over. And now I can do profit copy over. So there's my profit growing over time. And I guess, lastly, what I want to do here is have something for cumulative profit. And I just want to show how that works over time. And I could type anything in here. What I'm going to do is to say, for the first year, cumulative profit is equal to the profit. But in subsequent years, what it's going to be equal to is profit plus this year's profit. So last year's cumulative profit plus this year's profit. And that will just give me the sum of all these profits over time. So this number here is going to be, if you can see in the lower, on the bottom of the page right now, the 2.4 million is equal to the 2.4 million that we see in F12. Okay. So that's almost enough. The last thing I want to do is put something in around history. So if you remember the marketing simulation I showed you briefly at the beginning, what I want to do with that is be able to show, I had a couple of years of history when I started the simulation, and I want to have that in my sim as well. And the way I'm going to do that is set up a step where I say step the simulation at a starting amount at the beginning, and I'm going to have it just step one time so that I'll have a few years here. And the time is sort of represented strangely, so maybe fix that a little bit. I'm going to change that from custom to number. Yeah, that's a bit better. So that looks more like time or years, I guess, at the top. Okay, so here's my model. That's my whole model. Let me go ahead and save it so I don't lose it. And I'm going to put it, let's see, where was this? I'm going to put it in the folder that I was working in earlier, just so that and I'll call this model, I think, or let's call it model 1. Okay, there we go. So this is my model 1 that's been put together. And what I want to do from here is, you know, in Epicenter, I could use this as is. I could refer to B2 and B3 or C2 and so forth, but that's pretty abstract. And I think it's hard for a person who's building an interface to think in those terms. So one of the features that Epicenter has is this ability to refer to ranges in Excel by their names. And there's a feature in Excel that does this, which is kind of nice, which is if you go to, in Excel and go to Insert, Name, and then Create, you can create name ranges. And I'm going to use the left column for that. So I'll go ahead and do that. And what you can see is what that has done, if you look up here where you see D6 right now, is if I highlight, say, this row after sales, you can see the title here now, it says sales in the top. So this row, a bit of information now is named sales, and this one is named profit, and this one is named time, etc. And then in addition, I want to do that with these bottom ones. So I want to have these available as well. And what I'm going to do is do insert, name, create, and use left column again. And these are initial ones. So this one cell now is named initial sales over here. If I make that a little bit bigger, it's easier to see. And here's initial fixed costs, and here's step. And that's it. That's my whole model. That's the modeling I'm going to upload. There are only 2 required features in Epicenter for uploading this kind of turn-based model for you to have a turn-based interface. And the first one is you must have it doesn't have to be a column like I said here, it could be rows instead, but you must have a set of fields named time, so it knows kind of how time advances in the turn-based simulation. And the other one you need is something named step. So if you have those 2 pieces, you'll be able to create a simulation. Then everything else is sort of up to you to kind of in terms of what you want to build for using an Excel interface. So let me go ahead and save this again. And now I'm going to go back here and start in Epicenter. So this is what Epicenter looks like when you're logged into it. And I'm going to go ahead and create a new project. And I'm going to call my project, let's see, what is this? I said it was Tesla Cybertruck. Not Telsa, Tesla. There we go. Tesla Cybertruck. And when I type that in as a project name, what you'll see here, that there's a project ID that is created. And this is a URL-friendly ID. And so what you can see here is replace the caps with lowercase, and it's replaced the space with a hyphen, and that just makes it something that can be read as a URL. But if I want to, I can change that if I want, but I'm pretty happy with this. And then in these accounts, right now I'm using a team account, which is a for-pay account versus free accounts that are available in Epicenter. But in a for-pay account, I can create authenticated users, and the authenticated users here are end users who can log in and try out the simulation. So we have players who will be able to log in, and we'll be able to track how they performed as they ran through the simulation, which is really important if you're using this for a class and you want to see what the performance was like, or maybe even assessment or something like that. All right, so let me go ahead and create the project. And we've got now a URL that's been generated, and I can click on that URL, but of course there's nothing in it, right? So we haven't uploaded any information, there's nothing to run, it's just saying the project's not available yet. And our next step here with this is to add content to it. And as you can see here, again, what I was talking about a moment ago, we separate the model logic from the interface logic. We have a folder that's available online for the model logic that's currently empty, and we have another folder that's available for the interface that has kind of a starting point in it, but there's kind of nothing filled in currently. So let's go in here and upload our model. And I'll go back to my, just to my desktop here and find the, I've got kind of a mess right now, but here's model 1 that I created at 10:20 a.m. It's now 10:22 here in San Francisco. So I'm just gonna drag this in to the web page and drop it. And now I can see my model that has been uploaded. This is the model that I just created here. And later on, if I want to replace that model, which we'll do during this effort, then I can just drag over the top of it. And there's other ways of getting content in today, but into Epicenter as well. But this is sort of a simple way to do it. All right. So the next step is we need to create an interface to the model logic that we created in Excel. And the way that we are going to go about that is by using that top level that I mentioned before, the interface builder that's going to set up a set of templates for us. And when you use the interface builder, you have to upload your model first. And the reason for that is that the interface builder analyzes your model to determine what kinds of interfaces might be appropriate for it. And that's why that tool is really designed to help someone who's a non-expert build an interface quickly, and that's kind of why we're using this today. So I click on the interface builder, and it looks at the model that I've created, and it's saying actually there's 4 different types of interfaces that could be, or simulations that could be built with the model that I uploaded to Epicenter. And it's suggesting a single player turn by turn, multiplayer, which maybe would be possible, but difficult with the design that I created here, a run comparison, which is more of like a scenario comparison tool, or it's just a calculator, which is often done with Excel. Today, because we're doing a single player simulation, I'm going to use the turn-by-turn based approach. Okay, so what it does at the beginning here is it creates a set of pages that it thinks makes sense for a turn-based simulation, a single player turn-based simulation. If I had chosen one of the other options, I would have seen different sort of pages that are created here. But as we'll see, we have this ability to create additional pages if we want to, and kind of add to it and make the interface more elaborate, that we aren't limited to this. And we can also delete pages here if we want to as well. And I'll show you a little bit of that as well. The first thing we probably want to do in this is just create a new project title. So I'm going to click on header and footer settings and create the title of the simulation. So I'll say this is Tesla Cybertruck sales sim or something like that. That's my name of it. And I can also even put a logo in here for it. Right now there are no logos available because I haven't uploaded any images, but if I click on upload and I go to I go to my folder again, let's see here, where we go. There we go, work and conferences and this folder. There we go. Okay, so I have this Cybertruck icon that I set up in advance. Here's a little picture of the famous car. And let me just adjust the sizing of this. I don't want the full thing there. And I hit OK on that. So now I have an image in, and now I can select that as the header logo here. And now if I go to the page, it starts to look like you can sort of see that it's already the Cybertruck. So I might say here then, as we saw in the introduction to the marketing sim, say welcome to the Cybertruck simulation. And then I can add some text in here if I want to. There we go, paste. There we go. So there's the text that I have. I can also put in different pictures. I can put a picture in here, an image map, which is used for sometimes to show different, I can click on parts of the image to go to different pages and things like that, or videos, paste that in. And there we see, this is Elon Musk introducing the Cybertruck recently. Okay, so that's going to be my intro page for the simulation. I'm going to go ahead and save it where we are right now. The next step I might want to do is create some dashboard-based pages here, so I can have a dashboard. And again, it's making a recommendation of layout. I can change this if I want to, but I'm pretty happy with this right now. So I'm going to go ahead and click on chart type. I can choose different charts for creating the interface. And what I want to do initially here is just create a couple charts. I'm not going to fill this all in. And that's one of the features of Epicenter as well, is even though it creates all this layout for the template tool that we're using right now, you don't have to use all of it if you don't want to. So a good thing for me to have on here on my dashboard might be profit over time. And what I can do then is, name this particular graph profit. And what Epicenter has for nearly all of the languages is this capability called model introspection, where it can look inside of your model and sort of make recommendations of things that you want to include in it. If I go back to my Excel spreadsheet right now, you can see here I created an area called profit. So that's sitting here. And if I go back to Epicenter for the UI builder tool, and I click in here and I start typing profit, you can see there's the profit from the interface. And if I put in full profit here, what it does is it shows profit, from 2020 to 2024, which is the time that we had entered into the simulation. But I really don't want to do that. That's not the kind of game I want to create where I'm showing everything at the beginning. What I want to do is have it sort of column by column revealed to the player as they run through the simulation. So let me remove that. And instead, what I'm going to do is look for profit till current step. And what that does is adjust it so that it's going to show, a couple years of profit at the beginning here. Okay. All right, good. So next what I want to do is, or actually it's just 1 year, I'm sorry about that. So going from 20 to 2021, so it's just 1 year of profit that's showing here. All right, and next what I want to do is maybe put in a different type of chart, and I can show how my cost structure might be changing over time. So I'm going to call this my cost structure or pie chart structure. Let's see if I can spell that correctly. And we can have a legend on here. I'll turn that off initially, but let me go back up here and add some data to it. So what I want to do is select variables for this. Here what I'm going to do is put in variable costs, and you can see here now I have 3 options. And a pie chart usually is a snapshot in time. It's looking at one point in time versus over time for the line chart that we showed a moment ago. So for this one, I'm going to use the current step for the variable costs. And I'll put that in. It creates a full thing here. I can call this variable costs. And then I'm going to create another one, which is going to be fixed costs. Fixed costs. There we go. And I can call this one fixed costs. And then what I can do is enable the legend here. And I'm going to be able to have that. I'm going to go ahead and save that. And then we can kind of see what that all looks like when it's put together here. So we have the 2 cost structures available with the profit and the cost structure for the 2. And I'm going to just leave that for now as my dashboard. Then the next step I want to do is add a decisions. I'm going to skip the reports for now. I'll come back to that. And in my sim, what I did for decisions was just say that I was going to have price available. So let me go through and make price a decision in the sim. I'm going to put a slider in for that. I'll call this my price decision. And the variable I'm going to select for it is price. You can see here it's selecting the current step for price for running it. And then I can format it if I want. It gives me some suggested formats, but I can also override that by typing in something. And what I'm going to do is just put a format in like this. Let's see here. That's going to be my my format for this, where it's kind of formatted with a $sign at front, but it could be another currency if you want it to be. And then for the slider, I need to put in what the min and max are. I'm going to force it so that people can't charge less than $1 for a Tesla. I think that's reasonable, and the most they can pay is maybe 100,000 or something. So I'm going to put 100,000 as the max, and the increment on this I think is going to be $1. I'll just make it really sensitive. Okay, so there we go. That's sort of the range that we put in here. And then again, for the design, what it does is it has a reset where I can reset the game if I want, and then also simulate. So we've actually already done enough to create an interface, But the one thing that I need to do to run this now, because I set authentication up, is I need to create a class where people can log in and run it, because this is a simulation that requires us to log in to try it out. So let me go back to the project homepage. And from here, what I'm going to do is click on a new thing, which is called groups, that allows me to create multiple classes to use and run the simulation. And this could be used for then for if they're providing this to other groups outside, or even to other institutions, could be schools, could be companies and things like that. So ways to create subscriptions for it. So I'm going to go ahead and create a group, and I'll call this my webinar demo, I guess. And what you can see here is creating a group name that says Webinar Demo December 2019. It starts today and it expires in June. I'm going to go ahead and create my group. So now I have a group that's been created, but it has no users or no players in it. And my next step is to add players that are actually going to be able to run the simulation. The way I'm going to do that is by downloading a template to upload multiple end users. So I want to have a set of end users that are available in here. So I've downloaded my template. I'm going to open it up. And this is kind of providing me with a sort of a framework for thinking about how to build this out and how to upload users to my account. And let me make this a little bit wider so it makes it easier for everyone to see. And what I'll do here is I'll call this, what is it called again? It's Tesla Cybertruck Player 1. And I'll just make the username the same here, and I'll also set the password to be the same. So those are going to be, I'm going to create 10 accounts here, one more. There we go. So I have 10 accounts for running the simulation, and I can go ahead and save this. I'll save this in this folder here, and I'll call this my users. This is my users account. So I'll go ahead and save this. And now if I go back to Epicenter, I can now upload that spreadsheet I just created. It's called users, and it will generate the end users or players that are in my account. So if I go back to my group list now, you can see those people are now uploaded and are available for playing. So let's go ahead and use Tesla Player 1 and try it out. So I'm going to open this up as run the project. And the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to copy the link address, and I'm going to go to a new account here, just kind of an empty one. Well, I thought it was empty, but I guess there's something there. And try this out. So let me go ahead and put in the URL for the simulation. And now what I can do is go back to where I was and copy the username. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. There we go. And go back to here. Is it here? Yeah, there we go. And now let me put in the send it. So it was T. Let me just type it. TC Player 1. I think that's what I said. And log in. All right, good. So that was correct. Let me save that. So now we can see the interface that's been created for this. I can go through and run the video if I want to. There it is. There's my little description of it. I can see the dashboard, and in here I can see the results initially with the cost structure and things like that in the simulation. I can see the decisions page, and I can now move this around and charge more or less for my Cybertruck. And when I hit simulate, it advances, and I can see how the cost structure changes over time. I intentionally kept the game short here because it only goes 3 rounds, because I wanted to be able to kind of show what happens at the end here. And right now in the simulation, when we go to the end, it's just sort of, that's it. It just kind of stops abruptly here, but we can see these things kind of changing over time. I did want to illustrate one issue with the simulation that we have right now. Oops, I can't simulate any further right here. We're going to get to that in a minute, but let me reset again. So I go back to the beginning, and I see this dashboard right now, and you can see I'm in 2021, and I go to decisions, and I have 40,000 in here. If I change this, let's say I put in, I can type this in too. So if I put in 50,000 here, so I have 50,000 in, and I haven't pressed simulate yet, and I go to dashboard, what I can see is that that number has changed dramatically. And maybe to make that a little bit clearer, let me do the reverse of that. So if I go to decisions again, and I change that to some low number, like say 14,000, and go to the dashboard without pressing simulate, you can see now it's declining dramatically, right? So what's happening is it's doing exactly what's in the spreadsheet, right? So if I go back to that spreadsheet, let's find it here. We called it model 1, there we go. It's doing what we had in here. So if I change this number to 50,000 here, then it's updating everything in this column instantaneously. So we're already in this column. And so this is the bug that I wanted to kind of illustrate about, what happens. And this is kind of a common problem with these spreadsheet-based simulations. And the way that you solve it, and kind of easily solve this for it, is you can separate your price decision from the price that is reported in the interface and kind of delay it by 1 year through the columns. And the way that you typically would do that is you can add a new row to the interface and call it price decision. And then what I'm going to do is, for the first year, I want it to reference the initial price that I had entered. So I'm going to have it reference this price. And then from there on, what I want it to do is just use the price that it was in the previous decision. But for the price that's used in the game, what I want it to do is reference the previous year's price decision, if that makes sense. So as I enter price decision, the price is actually going to be, the price that's reported is going to be for the previous years. So that's how that works. And what that does now is, if I, for example, here, if I put in 50,000 for 2022, you can see it does not change this row anymore. The price stays at 40,000 in the year that I'm working, but it does change it now for the next year, the next column, and you can see it's updated. And that's really what I want to have happen here. So let me go ahead and fix that here. And I think that's typical. And when you're building a model, if you're doing your own model in a real problem, this is kind of that iteration, and quickly, don't build too much structure. Go ahead and test, see if you can discover problems and things, and then go back and change things. And so it's a good process for this. So I'm going to resave my model here as it is, and now I'm going to go back to my interface here and go to model and re-upload it. And all I have to do that is just, as I said, just drag it in here. And it says, do I want to replace it? I do. And now the new model's updated, and the timing now is for 10:37, which is the time right now. So it's a fresh model. And now if I go back and go to, where was I? Was I here? Yeah, let me log out. And I'm going to go back in and log back in as player. Actually what I should do is reset. I think I need to reset back to the beginning here. So let me reset. So this will load a new instance of it. And now I can see the results here for the first year, where I'm up to that amount. If I go back to decisions now, and I do the same thing I did before, where I lower it dramatically, and then look at the dashboard. No. Oh, you know what I did wrong? This is good. I'm glad I'm glad I tried that. I made a mistake. So what I need to do is actually update my interface, right? I still am referring to the price in the interface. So let me go back to the interface builder. And what I need to do with this is go to decisions. And from here, what I want to do is change the reference from price. What I need to use instead of price here is price decision. Oh, and another mistake I made, gosh, is I forgot to reference this price decision as a range. So let me do that as well. But I guess it's a good process here for, so we're showing where problems can occur. So let's confirm that this now is price decision, which it is. I'll go ahead and save this and re-upload it. So go back here to my project and my model, and go here and re-upload for 1039 now. Okay, let's go ahead. And now if I go back to my interface builder and then go to decisions and then go here, what I can do is change this now to price decision. So now price decision occurs here, and I'm ready to go, and I can go ahead and save this up here. And if I go back to my interface, which is here, and log in, and then let's reset to create a new run. It should reference the right cell here. Let me dismiss this. And if I make my decisions here, if I drag this over and stuff, I'll be able to simulate. All right, so that looks like that is working properly now. It kept it for the first couple rounds, and is continuing on from here. So next, what I'd like to do is illustrate how you can create additional reports, and also show how you can add additional like text-based information within the simulation. So let me go ahead and do that. And the way that you can go about that is within Epicenter, or going back to your model here, you don't have to always use just numbers in your Excel. You can also use text. And I can have someone who's like this advisor that I want to have, and the advisor is going to make comments. And I'm going to make this very simple. I'm going to say, if profit is positive, if I'm making money, then the advisor says, congratulations, you are profitable. And then if you're not making money, meaning you're either breaking even or losing money, it's going to say, unfortunately, you are not profitable. Okay, so those are my two statements, and let me fix it. I should say congratulations here. So oops, there we go. All right, so those are my two statements. I can copy that across then, and that's going to be, what it says over time. And because I'm profitable every year here, it's reporting it out correctly. I can also test that if I go in here and I change this again to a low number where I'm going to lose money. You should see it change. So here I'm now losing money and it's reporting it out the way I'd expect it to. So let me go ahead and fix that again. And what I need to do is save this as insert a new name range for it for the new variables that I created. And so now this is named advisor, and I can see that up there. And now I'm allowed to create an additional page in my interface for that. So let me go ahead and save that again. And from here, what I'm going to do is re-upload it. Let me go back over here and go to project homepage, and then go to model and upload the new version of my model that has the comments in it. And there it is. And now in the interface builder, I want to create a new page that has these comments that are available. So this is the first time I'm going to be creating a new page in the interface. Let me go ahead and go to add a new page. And here you can see in the interface builder, there's a bunch of different pages that are available. For this one, interestingly, what I'm going to do is use a text page for creating this. So text page, you usually think of being as static pages and things, but it can also work for doing interactive pages as well. And any of these would work, I think. This one looks pretty good to me right now because I'm going to have a single user. I'll call this my advisor page. I'm going to name it down here at the bottom. And there it is. It's right now not connected to the navigation, so we need to do that in a little bit. But the first thing I need to do is, well, one thing I want to do is add a picture of my advisor, like who my advisor is. So let me put an image in for that one. And I need to add a new image. And I had a couple advisors here. I'm going to put this person in as my advisor. So there is my advisor. I think that size is pretty good. And then I'm going to select the advisor for the image. So there she is as my advisor. And then what I want to do here is have that text appear when it's running. And notice at the bottom here, it explains a little bit about, it provides a little hint. You can display data from your model in line by using the double curly brackets together. And then what you need to do is refer to the variable that you want to use from your model to make that work. So let me show you how that works here. If I go back over here, the way I like to do this is kind of formulate the structure of this in the Excel spreadsheet and then kind of copy it over. I think it makes it a little bit easier to comprehend. So here what we're going to do is we want to say advisor, because if I look at this range name, you can see this is named advisor. So we want to refer to the range name as advisor. So there we go. And then I want to use open brackets because I want to think about what time period am I in. And then I'm going to put in step here for the current step that I'm in, and close brackets. So that's what I want to use as my variable here, and that will advance it from year to year, and I can have any text kind of appear around that. In this case, I'm just going to use the entire line. So I'll do double curly brackets, paste in the advisor step, close brackets, and there we go. It says, congratulations, you're profitable. So the person's saying that, and I'm sort of happy with that outcome here. And the other thing I probably want to do is get rid of the button. I don't need that button here. And I've got it. So I've got my advisor reporting out the text from my model going forward here. But now what I need to do is to create a different kind of report. I've got a report that I never built out here, but I want to get this advisor report in here too. And one of the features that we have is the ability to create drop downs and other menu items and things that's going to work in different kinds of interfaces. So let me go to navigation settings and change this out a little bit. And the first thing I want to do is get rid of the current report that I have, because I'm going to replace that report that I had before, since I'm not using it. And instead, what I want to do is add a drop-down menu. So I'm going to click on drop-down menu, and I'm going to call my drop-down menu reports, kind of plural, because I want to have more than one report in the drop-down. And then what I want to do is add a sub-navigation item, which is a report here, and I want to have a couple of them. I'll put in the first report. I'll call this, random report, I guess, because I'm not going to build this one out today. And that one we linked to the report page that we had before. I'm going to add another one, which is the advisor. And that is going to be linked to the advisor page that I had created before. And then this right now is appearing below decisions. I want to move it up so it appears above decisions now. If I go back to my pages now, what you can see is it's now available as a drop-down instead. So that's what that created, and also created, it linked in this advisor report that I created that previously had no link in the navigation. So now with that, let's go ahead and save it, and then go back and take another look at our interface to see what's happened here. So let me log out again and log back in as player one. And there we go. And you can see the reports are available here. And if I click into it and go to advisor, it says, congratulations, you're profitable. And let me try it now where I lose some money. I'm going to drag this down to a low number and press forward. And now I'm losing money. And if I go to my reports advisor, it didn't update. I think I need to, let me try this out here. I think if I reset, because I haven't updated the model from here from the last one. So I need to do that as well. All right. Let's try reducing my my money here and simulating and going back to the advisor. There, now it says, unfortunately, you're not profitable. So I updated, it needed a new run for that to work. So she's that. And of course, this could be longer if we want it to be. So there's other information that's available here. All right. Our next step here, what I want to do is show you a little bit about how facilitator pages work within the interface. And the way that you create facilitator pages is you have another type of dropdown that's available in here. So let me go to here. And this is something where you can look at a class's worth of results in the simulation. So up here, so far we've been focusing on the user interface or the player interface. But if I click up on that, I can also switch to the facilitator interface view. And what that does is kind of create a new version that's only available for facilitators to kind of update the simulation. And again, because we're using the template-based tool or the UI, the top-level UI designer tool, we get a lot of stuff kind of built out for us, automatically. So we can have class results that can appear. We can have class settings, view users, and upload users, kind of similar to what we saw in the marketing simulation at the beginning, but done sort of in a more generic way. So this would be the place we could upload users instead of doing it to the Epicenter interface if we want to have that available. And if we don't want that, we can click on it and delete it if we want to. I'm going to leave it for right now, but there's options for removing that as well if you don't like it. All right, so first thing I want to do is think about, like, what do I want to report out in the interface for the outcome? And right now all I see is the date and user. And notice this is not going to, says here, runs do not show up while in edit mode. So we're in edit mode right now. I want to click on this and I want to add a column. And what I want to do is in this game, I want to show cumulative profit because that's going to be my comparison of results for multiple students who are logging in. And I'm going to select here my cumulative profit value for the current step. And I'll just set that up. In this case, I'm going to do pound, comma, oops, sorry, I did this problem before. Pound 0. So this will be my format for the profit over time. Let me go ahead and save that. And then the other thing I might want to do while in here is I want to be able to set up class settings where I change the initial values in the simulation. So if I go back to my model that I created, I might say, well, I don't think that the first year that Tesla is going to sell 150,000 cars. I think, actually it's going to be 250,000 or some other number. And so we can use that initial settings to adjust it. If I change this to 250,000 in the Excel model, you can see it updates here and changes all the rest of the values below it here, right? So I can use that as something where the facilitator can change the scenario that's available for the students who are running the simulation. So let me go ahead and do that under the class settings bit here. And I'm going to add a decision type around that. I'm going to use a text input and call this the initial sales. And I'll choose my variable here, which is initial sales. And again, it recognizes that it starts out at 150,000. And I'm going to use the format here of the 1,000 separator, because that looks good for that. And that's sort of all I need to do with it. So now I've been able to build. What the other thing I should probably do here is add a header that just tells me what this is. This is the Tesla Cybertruck Facilitator page. Okay, so there we go. I'm not going to put the image. Well, you know what? Actually, the image is available, so let me just put that up there too. All right, so there we go. There's the Tesla Cybertruck Facilitator page. It's available here. All right, so that's good enough. Let me go ahead and save that. And the next thing I need to do, which I haven't done yet, is I need to create a facilitator for my group. So I go back to groups here and go to the webinar, and what you can see here, it says facilitator no for everybody that I uploaded before. I'm going to try a different way of adding end users for facilitators here. And I'm going to say this is, what does it say, Cybertruck Facilitator 1. That's what I'm going to call this, Cybertruck Facilitator 1. It looks okay. So I'm going to invite this user, add it, and I'm going to call this as Michael Bean. That's me, and put in a password. And then I'll make this person a facilitator. So they have different privileges than the other people had before. Okay, very good. So now I've got one person who's never logged in, who's a facilitator for the simulation. And what I might want to do from here is go back then and log in as the facilitator to kind of show new results here. So let me log out. And now I'm going to log in with this other account, which is the facilitator account. And here I am in the facilitator account, and I can see now the class results. And here are the different people who played from the simulation from earlier. And I can also look at class settings that are available. And I can do what I sort of said here. If I want to change this to being 250,000, I can set that up and apply settings to it. And so now the settings have been applied to current runs. I can also view users who are available within the account. It's interesting. I think someone who's on the call is logged in as player 10. So we're getting some additional results in here as a consequence of one of the people. So that's good. Actually, I appreciate that. So thank you, person who logged in with that. That sort of added some additional results for our simulation today. Anyway, so now we've got that logged in. We've changed the setting to 250,000 from 150,000. If I go back now and log in as TC Player 1, and I go to the dashboard, well, actually, I think I'm in. I don't actually. Unfortunately, I don't show that. Well, let me go back here. If I change this now to, I'd have to create a report that shows the sales total to be able to see that now. But we can simulate that forward, and the 250,000 should be applied. I know we're almost out of time here, so I'm going to leave it at that for the moment. And I want to, what I said at the beginning. Well, I want to just flag a couple of things that we could be doing here that sort of help you going forward with this. Just as a reminder of what we saw in here is that you should name the ranges in your Excel spreadsheet to make it easier to reference. And we saw you do that a couple times within this interface today. And you should also include both a time range and a step cell in your spreadsheet for the simulation that advances over time in a turn-based simulation like what we've created today. And there are other resources that are available. There's a support forum and online reference guide. Let me quickly show you what those look like within the interface here. So we have documentation that's available that kind of goes through explaining all the features of Forio Epicenter, and it goes through explaining how to build a model in Excel and kind of talks about the things I just discussed. But there's also in here a support forum, and the support forum has different questions that appear where people are kind of asking things that have been going on with the simulation and things like that. And that's a good place to ask questions and also to look for answers that might have been previously answered around, issues that people have within the simulation. All right, I think we have about 5 minutes left for questions today, and Amrita, who's going to submit, she's going to repeat, ask me a question. I'll repeat it then, since you won't be able to hear her, and then I'll answer the question hopefully. Amrita, are there any questions from the group today? Okay, so there's a question generally around, what we've been using today is for pay account, because I wanted to show the facilitator and class-based piece. And how does the prices work on the on that account versus the free account? So I can show that to you in Forio. So if you go to Forio.com, just our website and then go to products here, you'll see Epicenter. This is the platform that we've been going through today. And if you click on that, at the bottom, you'll see pricing. And that will go through a little bit and kind of explain what the different pricing options that are available here are. The free one, the big thing that it doesn't allow you to do is to create the authenticated accounts that we're using today. So you can't create end users or players, and you can't create a facilitator, but you can create public simulations with that free account. And then the next one's up. What they are kind of controlled by or limited by are the number of end users or players that you would have. So the small one has 40 end users or 40 players, and then it goes up to 5,000. And you can support more than 5,000 if you would like to. That would be through an enterprise license, but you kind of see a range here for that. And these other licenses also have additional simulations that you can create. That's these number of simulations that are allowed per account here within it. So you can see for mine, for example, if I go back to this account that I've been using today, which is called Sims, I think it says there are 20 total projects in here. So I have a total of 20 simulations in this account, which I use for these demos sometimes. So the question is, can you combine decisions and output graphs in a single view? And the answer is yes, you can, using the interface builder tool that we've been doing today. If you click on the interface builder, I'll go back to where I was just to illustrate that. If I add a page, you'll see one of the options in the pages is combination input and output pages. So if you go to that, you can kind of see examples of pages that combine both output graphs and also inputs, and you can use one of those to make that work. I think there may be other questions that we have today, so I really appreciate everyone who's been able to attend. We will be uploading this video to YouTube and share with you the link to YouTube so you can see it later on. And we will also be answering any additional questions that people have just independently. We'll send you an email to provide you with a response. Thank you very much, everyone. Bye-bye.